Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 54th Tech Talk today. Today, I'm joined by a special guest that's going to talk a bit about circular economy and other topics. But as always, I would like you to join us in these Tech Talks and perhaps reach out on Rene at 46elks.com if you want. Without further ado, let's welcome Elisa. Hey, Elisa.
Hello, great to
Hi.
be here.
Nice. So, in this world we are now, where sustainability is no longer an option, but it's a necessity, how can businesses reimagine their processes to drive both economical value and environmental responsibility? Well, Lisa is going to help us get through those questions today and some others. So, you are a founder of MiXi. Can you explain a bit what MiXi is, what's going on there, and what do you do there?
Yeah, happy to. So, first, I'm located in Helsinki, and it's important because Finland is one of the leaders in circular economy, and generally, of course, the Nordics. But yeah, Finland has quite a big role there. My background is in fact from tech. I was a co-founder in a tech startup, and in some point, I got to know more the world of circular economy. And as I always say, I fell in love. Because it made so much sense. I think that for many of us, and especially like, let's say, 10 years ago, this kind of topics related to sustainability and the green transition were still a bit fluffy, let's say. And what circular economy brings is a very rational perspective on these issues. Because the idea with circular economy is to use the resources that we have as much as possible. That's
Nice.
in a very, very general way.
So yeah, the question is that pops up a lot of the time, and I had this nice intro, right, of having sustainability and business growing. How do we match the two? How do we connect the two? What is circular economy, kind of in a nutshell?
Yeah. As I mentioned, the goal with circular economy is to use the resources that we have as much as possible and to use less as possible more natural resources. And it's a very broad perspective because it means, of course, that along the value chain that we have of products, we need to make sure that the materials that we use are in this loop. We have this term in circular economy, a closed loop, so that materials flow in the value chain and keep their value as high as possible. So it tackles processes that are related to the design already phase, because you need to design products to be sustainable as possible, which means that you can repair them if needed, you can refurbish them if needed. So really use these different circular practices, as we call them.
Mm.
And kind of going back to what MiXi does, so we were founded because we wanted to involve the business sector as much as possible in this world of circular economy. Traditionally, in Finland and other Nordic countries, the circular economy has been driven mainly by the public sector. So we have, for example, an amazing organization in Finland called Sitra, which was the organization that initiated also the World Circular Economy Forum, which is kind of the circular economy conference in the that it works globally. But they're very focused on the policies and frameworks, roadmaps to circular economy. And with MiXi, we wanted to focus more on the business sector and mainly on the startups. So that's what we do today. And we focus on three different main areas. One is programs, entrepreneurship programs. So we have different programs for different stages of companies. And in fact, now we're just going to launch one of them, which is called Tundra, which is for female founders who have climate tech solutions, and circular economy is one of the areas that we focus on. And it's a Nordic program. For this next program that is starting in November, the deadline for application is already over, but we're happy to get applications for the next programs. So programs, as I mentioned, and the second thing is events. We create different events that bring this world of circular economy, entrepreneurship, and innovation together. So one example is the Nordic Circular Summit that will be in Helsinki on the same week with Slush, which is very exciting because we kind of exactly bring these two worlds together, circular economy and, of course, the startup ecosystem. Welcome to join, because it's free to join. So if you're in Helsinki in mid-November, welcome. And then the third part is more kind of the consultancy part. So we work with startups, help them to build their circular business model, help them to grow, to connect, for example, with corporates and investors. But also we work with kind of the other side of the table. So if investors are looking for startups, circular startups to invest in, so that's where we would like to help. So these are the main things that we do.
Nice. I put it up in the chat. If someone, they can just click and look at it. Also use the QR code here to register, to Tundra, a little bit look at this initiative. So that's really exciting to do and to see. So a lot of people are going to be present from abroad during the Slush Week. So I think it's a very good way to get people there and use this opportunity to visit also and be a part of it. Yeah.
As we say, Helsinki is great in November.
No, it's really lovely.
The weather is not perfect, but the great people are here, and we are happy to meet anyone who is coming to the city.
It's very, the atmosphere is great. It's very hustly, very entrepreneur-like, and you can meet a lot of people during the Slush Week and the week before, after. So I really highly recommend that. So can you kind of, Alisa, share some real-world examples and success stories? It's kind of, I think, easier to understand the concept, any concept, when you hear some good examples.
Yes. So, in fact, one of the maybe, let's say, challenges with circular economy is that it's very broad, and there are maybe different perspectives what is considered circular economy. I'm looking into circular economy in its maybe kind of very, very broad perspective. For example, also shared economy. Mm-hmm. So anything that is related, for example, to shared mobility. If we use car sharing, it's considered as circular economy, in my opinion. The same with secondhand. So, for example, we have a great example from the Baltics, Vinted, which is one of the leading second-hand fashion platforms. So there are, of course, a success story and one of the unicorns in this world of circular startups. It's not anymore a startup, but started as a startup. Mm-hmm. Then another example is Swappy, the Finnish company that is refurbishing iPhones. So they've been selling more refurbished iPhones in Finland than Apple selling new iPhones, which I think is a great example to the fact that it's not only a success story from the financial perspective that we have here, a business case and a market, but also that people are changing their mindset, that to buy a phone which is not new one is a great option. So I really like these two options, these two examples. But then, of course, with circular economy, we have also the kind of new materials that are coming. So we have a startup in Finland that is called Betolar, and they're creating a new kind of concrete, which is much more sustainable than the concrete that is now used. Right. So that's what I also like in circular economy, that you have this kind of variety of different innovations and different options to have impact on the environment and exactly like I mentioned, to contribute to the goal of using less and less natural materials.
So this is the probably the company you were referring to, Beto.
Yes.
Beto.
Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting to have. I did notice that my personal experience when it comes to secondhand products that are technical, right? So, for example, iPhones, phones in general, laptops. Usually, what we kind of notice is these big companies buy in bulk, right? Uh, a huge amounts of these phones or laptops or computers, whatever. And then we see a transition of them, perhaps from financial reasons, they get rid of them, right? So it's a very interesting transition from company usage to kind of privately owned, but gets refurbished in the meantime. I think that's what you kind of referred to as right as a good example of circular economy, also.
Yes, and in fact, why with MiXi we like to focus on startups is because we see them as kind of change agents. Because of course for big companies it's really difficult to change their business model from a linear business model which is what we are used to a circular business model. But for
Mm,
startups, especially if they're born circular, as we call those that just they start as circular with a circular business model, they're still new, they are innovative, they are agile, they can kind of focus on the circularity with their operations. And as we see when these early stage companies they get successful, so then the other companies which are already established companies, they see, okay, there's a business case, it's interesting, and then there are of course different ways to incorporate these circular business models in their linear business models. But we see, of course, that many of these companies, like like Apple or Nokia, starting to think also, okay, they understand there is a market. There are people who are looking for these refurbished phones from different reasons. It can be because they want to buy cheaper phones, but it can be also from the ethical point of view that they want to create sustainable decisions. And they understand that they need to provide these options. And it's of course it's driven by a few different things. So one is the interest from the consumers. Another thing is the regulation. So there is more and more EU regulation coming that kind of forces companies to become more circular and to give these options. One great example is a new initiative from the EU that is called the right to repair. So consumers need to have the option to repair their electronic device, and it can be also other devices like washing machines or other products. They need to have the option to repair them in an easy way. So if we are used to the exactly what you mentioned, that we use the product, then we just get rid of it, it goes to waste, and then we buy new ones. So there are more
mm,
and more factors that are changing this kind of way of consuming.
mm. So I have kind of detected a couple of things here. So yes, as you said, it's easier, right, to get into the early stages in the company, like startups, right, and influence them to become more circular economy oriented, right? Then perhaps this FOMO effect happens with bigger companies, right, that kind of see this working and want to get into that, which is, I think, a very good approach. And the thing you touched upon is the one thing that I also wanted to kind of look at with you is the challenges and the opportunities in Europe's circular economy landscape. And that is, you touched on one, that is the right to repair, right? So we in EU have this initiative to push the manufacturers to have something be repairable, actually, and to have all of the parts for it after a couple of years. So because without it, this whole thing about refurbishing things will not work, right? So what are the challenges? This is the opportunity, right? Is there any challenges? Europe is known to be more restrictive with some things, right? So what are the challenges? What are the opportunities that you kind of clearly detected in the Europe's circular economy landscape?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start with challenges. So one is that, of course, although we see that consumers are looking for more sustainable options, there are the kind of the economy is still very linear. So for many to change their mindset that okay, it's okay to buy secondhand T-shirt or secondhand phone, or to use car sharing instead of buying new cars. So it's of course it requires us to create, to live differently. So, and
Change our
like
lifestyle. Yeah.
it's relevant for consumers, but of course if you're a B2B company, so then you need to accept to also get the other businesses to take sustainable decisions.
Yeah.
So this is more kind of from the behavioral aspect, the challenge. Then there is the financial challenge that still often the linear decision would be cheaper than the circular. So, for example, there's a company in Finland that had a project of reusing bricks from buildings. So, when demolishing buildings, they took the old bricks and wanted to reuse them in new buildings. It's
Awesome.
still cheaper to get new bricks from China than to do what I mentioned. So, and there, of course, there are different ways to tackle this challenge, especially from the regulation and legislation, because then you need to kind of balance the price with taxes or other incentives. So still for many companies, they need to think, is it really financially better for them to be circular? And we can't expect companies to make sustainable circular decisions or circular economy oriented decisions if financially they need to take the risk. So that's another thing. And then let's say the third one is that it's still quite a new area. So in the last 20 years, a lot has been happening, but you don't have all the frameworks and infrastructure that is required to make your life more circular. And this is, I think, kind of a good connection to the opportunities. Because if companies provide these solutions and make the decision-making process easier for companies or for consumers, for individuals to take sustainable solutions, so then they have, of course, an advantage there. And that's something that we talk a lot with startups, that if you become more circular, so let's use it as a competitive advantage. Of course, it's difficult to be first mover in the market, but it's also an advantage. So as I said, we are in a very exciting time, especially in Europe with the other regulation that is coming. You can kind of see the transition, and I'm sure that in 20 years from today, we'll be in a different point than we are today,
Yeah.
hopefully.
So yeah, you touched here on the looking into the future, but also kind of seems to me that this is about education and long-term versus short-term thinking. So, right, what you mentioned with the bricks. Yes, short-term, it really makes sense financially for you to import it from China, right? But long-term, does it even financially make sense? So that I think that's something to kind of be aware of. And yeah, very interesting that this first stage is really about education and about like opening up new perspectives. Awesome. But yeah, you touched on the looking up to the future. So what emerging trends, innovations are you excited about now? Do you see something going on?
Yeah, so I think maybe something that is very relevant and also for Tech Talk is something that is called the Digital Product Passport, or as we call it, the DPP. And the DPP is a digital ID that you add to products. So it's also a regulation that is coming from the EU that in the future, every product would have this unique ID that enables then companies and also end users to understand what is the source of the resources that are used in the product. So let's take
Hmm.
again like t-shirt as an example, quite easy example. So where is the cotton, for example, made? In which country is it made? Is it organic? Is it sustainable? And then also the logistics. What steps have been in the transportation of this T-shirt? And so this is kind of one part. But then also when consumers buy the T-shirt, so what happens in the next stages? It would enable consumers, for example, to know how many times this T-shirt has been washed, and are the materials that are used for washing are the best ones for the T-shirt. And then even if the T-shirt is then resold to another consumer, so kind of to see, okay, who is this person, or if it was repaired by a seamstress, so then that the fact that it has been repaired, and if there was a button, so maybe the button was replaced. So it's this digitalization is bringing a lot of opportunities also for startups and also for this transition to become more circular. Because when you think about the options that it opens with innovations like AI and other disruptive technologies that are coming, and I think that many of them we still don't even know what will be there. So it brings, as I said, it's part of this transition that I was speaking about, because the circular economy has been very hardware oriented, very physical.
True.
For example, when you think about repairing phones, eventually it's very, like hand you need to, of course, people to do it, or machines. But when you bring the digitalization part to it, so it creates new opportunities, and
Yeah.
that's a new trend that you see.
That is true. I always associated it with hardware, actually. Yes, but that's the digital aspect. I didn't even think about it. So yeah, that could be interesting.
It is interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So I've shared this digital product passport that you shared. I found like a proposal of it for the EU. I think it's a good way to start, perhaps, for exploring
Yes,
if people want. So, yes, a lot of our listeners and our community is very tech oriented. We're mostly developers and sysadmins and etc. So, yes, I think it's a good talk to have. And on these tech talks, we already had the right to repair tech talk one time, where we talked about what we fixed already by on our own, why, what were the hurdles, etc. So there is a movement going on where people are getting frustrated with discarding something just because one small component doesn't work anymore.
yes,
You feel bad when you do that. So there is this now movement that will probably help with that, and I see that you're doing a really good job here. Um, Great. Lisa, thank you very much for explaining these complicated things in a very easy manner. I invite everyone to kind of follow you on the LinkedIn page here on the chat. Find you also on, I presume you're on Facebook, probably on other social media.
yes.
Listen, less. All right.
Mostly on LinkedIn. But we
Awesome.
have, just to mention, we have a LinkedIn channel where we had this series of webinars called "Are You Ready for the Future?"
Okay.
And it was focused on the textile sector, but we had one session that was mainly about the DPP because it's going to affect few sectors in the beginning. So textile is one of them. So we had a great speaker about the DPP and kind of explaining also its connection to the innovation side, but also to the regulation that is coming from the EU.
Awesome. So, Alisa, thank you very much for explaining the circular economy to me. I always kind of had a notion of it. I never kind of understood it completely. I think I understand it better now. So, everyone interested, please again click on this QR code to go to Tundra and apply. It will be very nice to be a part of that. Alisa, thank you very much again for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's great to be here.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice weekend.